Haikyuu, I'm not afraid to say it, but I think it might just be one of the best manga that's ever been written. It's certainly one of the best I've ever read, hands down. Full disclosure, I don't really like volleyball. I wasn't even good at it at all in high school. But man, this series hooked me from the first episode, and hooked me again just the same when I dove into the first book. This series is the ultimate underdog comeback feel-good tale, checking out all the good shonen stuff from the list, and giving you plenty more to adore. The main protagonist, Shoyo, is short, and that's a problem when you're trying to become a great volleyball player, or even just joining a team. But he won't let his height stop him from becoming one of the best volleyball players in Japan, maybe even the world. Told fairly realistically with tons of care and overflowing passion, even non-sports lovers such as myself will have no choice but to bow down and let themselves be consumed by this epic series. But before we get started though, I'd like to welcome you to MangAnalysis, where I do little reviews of some of the manga I've been reading. If you like what you see and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, maybe even leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. Okay, so straight up, there will be spoilers. Small spoilers, big spoilers, just any spoilers. This is an all-encompassing review of the whole series, and I just don't really want to hold back, so be warned, I guess. Alright, summary. Shoyo Hinata has wanted to play volleyball for a long time now, ever since he saw the little giant play at the Tokyo Nationals. One problem though, he's short, like very short, and since volleyball is a sport where the tall dominate, he finds himself at quite the disadvantage. After getting a ramshackle team together to compete in the middle school tournament, he learns very fast that his height is more of an issue than he thought, getting absolutely ruined by the other team. However, Shoyo has two things going for him. He can jump super high and can run really fast. Still determined to play volleyball, he joins the Karasuno Crows, the team which he saw the little giant play in all those years ago. He's shocked for two reasons. The Karasuno Crows have since lost their glory and find themselves being but a shadow of who they once were. And the captain of the team that crushed him in middle school, Kageyama, genius setter, has also joined Karasuno. Together with his new angry rival, and a team full of awesome characters, Shoyo and Karasuno will soar to new heights and strive to be the ones who stay on the court the longest. So before I go into the main reason why I think Haikyuu is so great, I'd like to share with you in a Blitz Round fashion some of my other favorite parts of it. First off, the art. The art is so good. It's incredibly dynamic and expressive and lends itself to the story really well. You can feel the stress and energy of a volleyball game right through the line work. The motion is clear, and even though the court is filled with many characters and lots of action, you never struggle to follow the movement. It's excellent. Second thing is, the cast is excellent. I love the characters. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you'll know that a big cast of characters can be a scary thing, but when developed properly, oof, tickles me fancy. The boys in the Karasuno team are great, including the coaches and the managers. Each character has a role to play, and they each have, more or less, their own moment to shine and to show a bit more of themselves. As the series goes on, they each develop superbly and each outclass the starting version of themselves, and not only in volleyball skill, but as people and teammates as well. But this isn't only limited to the main cast though, for many characters on the other teams, even if seen only once or twice, get the same treatment. Well, sometimes obviously not as developed, but still really neat. Some of those characters may have small roles, and yet they're still given just enough backstory to make it impactful. It was a treat to get attached to these characters and then get rewarded with a little bit of context before moving on to another team. Finally, the passion for volleyball. Shoyo Hinata, and honestly Karasuno as a whole and a ton of other characters, radiate enthusiasm for volleyball. Yes, even you, Tsukishima. I see you. You can't hide from me. I remember watching the anime and being so enthralled by their infectious love for the sport that I convinced myself I was going to join a volleyball team. But then COVID happened and the fire faded a bit. But still, I might have actually gone through with it. I don't know. Alright, so with all that good stuff out of the way, now it's time to get into why I really love this series. Haikyu, or rather, the author, is a master of subverting expectations. Of course, the series follows a relatively predictable shonen journey. Especially given that it's an underdog comeback story, you have to assume that certain things are just going to happen. But The ways in which these things happen caught me by surprise more than a few times. Let me give you a few examples. So one of the big goals of the series is to get Karasuno to the Japanese national tournament held in Tokyo each year, and only one team per region can make it. We know that the 30 years on the team only have one chance left to make it, so it's do or die. Karasuno makes it to the semifinals and has to play against Abujosai. The game is close and they go through a lot, and just when you think they're going to make it, they lose the game. So you, the reader, is like, what the heck? I thought they had to win. I thought that was the point of the series. They overcame so much to get there. All that effort wasted. Like, they didn't even make it to the finals. We do find out afterwards that even though they missed the opportunity to go to those nationals, there are still the spring nationals they can try and make their way to. But still, it was still really surprising. I remember feeling shocked. That loss, however, gave them the opportunity to learn and grow, which ended up being a super wholesome moment for the team. But still, whoa. The second time I remember being sort of shocked was at the national tournament. Yes, they do make it in their second attempt and it's awesome. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So, they finally get to play with their fated rivals, Nekoma Hai, in Tokyo. We had been waiting for this match since the very beginning of the series, and it was finally happening. The game was intense, lots of highs, lots of lows, it went back and forth, and then it just ended. Because the Nekoma setter's hands were sweaty and the ball slipped. And that was it. It was such a nonchalant way to end such a high-intensity match. I didn't really ever think Karasuno would lose this game, but I definitely didn't think it would end like that. Even the players were like, wait, what? It's over? Now, this was by no means a disappointing match. If anything, it just showed that at the end of the day, regardless of how you are and how prepared you are, stuff happens, and that's a major theme of this series. It was just really weird how it happened, that's all. The third time the series really shocked me was, again, at Nationals, where Karasuno was playing against Kamomedai, who also featured a little giant-inspired player. This was supposed to be the big match between Shoyo and this other little player, Hoshiumi. But then Shoyo falls ill and has to leave the game, so they make it to the furthest the team's ever made it ever, and then the protagonist gets sick and bounces. What the heck? It was heartbreaking. It definitely foreshadows the final match we see at the end of the series, which is great. But in the moment, when you're reading it, you're thinking that the Tokyo arc might have just be the final one. You're thinking that they're going to win this game and go to the finals. Maybe they won't win the finals, but they'll get there. Because there are so many other teams and cool characters that were introduced. Surely we'll get to see them play. But no, Shoyo gets sick and they lose the game. So yeah, didn't really see that one coming. Haikyuu had many of those little moments where it would have been simple to just have them win or lose, but instead there was much more to those wins and losses. Everything worked as a way for them to get better and stronger, to push them, and to make them truly see what they cared about, whether that was volleyball or other things. For sure, like I mentioned before, there are games that you knew they were going to win, because the series would have ultimately been way shorter and less cool, but for the most part, even those predictable games were perfectly well executed with twists and turns. Speaking of losses, I love how the author wasn't afraid to hand Karasuno a ton of losses throughout the series. They won when it mattered, but they also went through some wild losing streaks, like when they were at the training camp in Tokyo. They lost all their matches. Even when they had this giant epiphany and learned some new tricks, they still lost. They didn't even win their last match. They lost to Abujosai, which was wild, and then they lost to Kamomedai. Even when Hinata was playing beach volleyball in Brazil, he and his partner lost the one game we got to see them play. But those losses made us, the reader, so desperate for that sweet win, that when we got to see the Black Jackals, Shoyo's team, win against the Sweden Adlers, Kageyama's team, it felt absolutely incredible. We waited 45 books to see that happen, and it was delivered beautifully. So, was there anything about Haikyuu that I wish would have been done differently? Honestly, not really. It's not the first time that I cover a series on this channel that I think is ultimately a near-perfect series, but I do consider this one to also be a near-perfect series. But, if there was one thing I nitpick about, and this is silly, but, was how they handled the Japanese Olympic team at the end. So, for some context, it's revealed at the end of the series that some characters that we know, like Shoyo and Kageyama, and others have made it to the Tokyo Olympic team for volleyball. But we never really see who's on the team. That's not true. We see some of them, there's a double-page spread, but there's a lot of characters that were omitted from the manga panels that are actually on the team, and some of those we actually know from the series. It was a little bit surprising. I wish that we would have seen the whole team like displayed in some panels with their stats and their names and positions like we've seen so many times before in the series. I think that would have been really neat. The author took a lot of time to show the readers what the characters have been up to all these years since after the high school days. So I was a little bit surprised that he didn't just take a page to include what the Olympic team was all about. But the question remains, should you check it out? So, like I've said before, I don't really like the whole sports thing. Volleyball too. It doesn't interest me. The only reason I checked out Haikyuu in the first place was because the anime got added to Netflix and I had nothing better to do. But dog, I was absolutely hooked. Consumed even. So, yes, you should check it out. I am proof that you don't need to like volleyball to love this series. You don't even need to like sports. It has everything you need in a good manga. Great art that lends itself well to the story, compelling characters, great story development, humor, emotional highs and lows, and an overall great vibe. Please check it out. If reading the manga seems a bit overwhelming to you, do what I did. Start with the anime. Watch everything that's there. Get consumed, experience withdrawals, read the whole manga in only a few weeks, experience withdrawals again, rewatch the anime, reread the manga, and so on. Haikyuu, baby, is some real good stuff. Well, that was Haikyuu. I hope you enjoyed this little review, and if you did indeed enjoy it, consider subscribing. This was MangAnalysis, and I'll see you in the next one.